Tragedy Looper. Welcome to Tragedy Looper, a time loop deduction board game. A mastermind will unfold a mystery while the protagonists try to figure out what is going on. That sounds interesting. Tragedy Looper, New Tragedies. Welcome to Tragedy Looper, a time loop deduction board game. One player at the mastermind will unfold a mystery while the... Wait, have I read this before?
Hi, this is Ambi from Board Game Blitz, and today I'm going to talk about Tragedy Looper New Tragedies, published by WizKids Games, specifically how it compares to Tragedy Looper, the original, published by Z-Man Games. So this is not a review or a how to play. I have both of those for this one over here linked, so you can go watch those if you're interested in what the gameplay is like or if you would like it. But basically, this is the same gameplay, it just has different scenarios. Also, you might want to check out one or both of those videos if you're not familiar with the game Tragedy Looper, because these comparisons are going to be talking about the components in the game, so you might want to be a little familiar with the game. But this is a comparison of what comes in the box of both of these games. So I got this as a review copy from WizKids Games, but this one I bought with my own money a long time ago, back in 2015, I think. And I also bought the expansion and another expansion, which is still in drink. But yes, I bought those a long time ago. Anyway, let's get on to the comparison. So you can probably already tell from looking at the box that the graphic design is a little different in both of them. But I wanted to go through and do a detailed comparison of all of the components of both games. So I read through the rule books, I read through all the cards to see what differences there were. I'm also going to have a blog version of this where I list out all of the differences, possibly in more detail if you want to know exactly what differences there are. But this will give you like an idea, hopefully. So first, the rulebook. There are two rulebooks in Tragedy Looper. There's the player aid and then the mastermind guide. So the player aid is what you would read as a regular player. It tells you how to play. And then the mastermind guide has instructions on how to teach the game, and then also all of the different scripts, because Tragedy Looper is a one versus mini game and the other players aren't allowed to look at the mastermind stuff. So the original Tragedy Looper was pretty hard to learn from the player aid. The rules were kind of confusing and it could have been organized clearer. It was a lot easier to learn from the mastermind guide, which tells you how to teach the game. So just like reading that first part of the mastermind guide is probably a better way to learn the game. I was hoping the new version would improve the rulebook and change it around more, but unfortunately, as you might have seen in the intro, it's a lot of the same text, and so it's not as clear as I would like it to be. They did reformat a little bit and they added more pictures, although the pictures that they added are just illustrations, like random illustrations that don't actually add to the explanations. So it doesn't actually help with the rules. The formatting is cleaner and easier to read. There's more line breaks, paragraphs, formatting, bolding and stuff. So it is easier to read, but like the text is basically the same. One big change in New Tragedies, which is throughout the rulebook and the player aids and everything, is the names of some of the subplots and some of the things have changed. So for example, paranoia in the original version has changed to unease. And so that's changed throughout the rulebook, throughout the player aids. And also some of the subplots, the names have changed, or some of the main plots, the names changed. Nothing else changed about the plot, just the names. So I'm not sure why, but those have changed. In the Mastermind rulebook, the game script guide and teaching guide are almost exactly the same as the original. So for both versions, I suggest you learn from those guides or from my how to play video. That might be good too, but I think those are easier to learn from. The one thing I did not read through for comparison was all of the scripts, because I didn't want to spoil myself. I haven't played all of the scripts. I played all the scripts in the original game, but not in the new game. But I did look through the scripts that looked like they were similar, because there were some scripts that had the same incidents in number of days. So I looked through those ones, and actually some of them are exactly the same as the original version. So instead of having 13 new scripts in this one, versus the 10 in the original, I found that 3 of the scripts were almost exactly the same. I think 2 of them were exactly the same. One of them was almost exactly the same. And then another one was also, the first steps one was pretty similar, but more different. So like you could actually play both of them, I think. But that's still 10 new scripts versus the 10 new in the original one. So there's 13 total in the new Tragedies game, which is more than the original, even though 3 are the same. For the Mastermind Handbook, they also have a script guide that tells you like hints on how to do the script and stuff. And in the new version, I noticed there was more details in the summary and in the victory conditions, so that might be more useful for a new mastermind starting out, giving them more hints and like going into more details on the script. But when we played in the original version, a lot of times like the hints they gave weren't necessarily what we wanted to do. We didn't think they were the best to do. So I don't know how good the hints are in this new version. The victory conditions are elaborated in more detail. For example, instead of saying a victory condition is killing protagonist using the hospital incident, it would go into detail saying like at the end of day X, have 2 intrigue on the hospital and at least X unease on this character in order to kill the protagonists. So that makes it easier for learning, but it also repeated it like for every incident instead of like being more concise. So that can get kind of annoying, like looking through all of the victory conditions. So I think that's the main differences in the rule books. So now let's get into the components of the game. The first thing I noticed with the game components is that the board is one piece in the new version, which is really nice. So in the original version, the board was 4 different boards that you set up. It's always in the same orientation, so you don't need it to be 4 different pieces. And then also an extra sideboard where you track things. So now all of that is just in one board and you can just put it on the table. That's really nice. The graphic design is different. Like you can look at the pictures for all of them to see which graphic design you prefer. I think I like the graphic design of the new one better just because it's clearer for me to see. The other one was pretty dark with everything, but in the new one, the colors stand out more, so it's easier to see what's going on. The next component is the player aid. So at first glance, the new one looks nicer. It's on nice cardstock instead of paper, and the graphic design looks nice. But when you actually look at the information on it, the new one has a lot less information than the old one, which made me really sad. So the original player aid had more information on it. So it had character roles and the Mastermind cards, which is really useful when you're playing because you want to know what cards the Mastermind can play and like what the different characters can do without just looking at the cards all the time. It's easier to see it on the sheet. Also, I think the layout of the original was more clear. It was a grid layout, so you're doing a logic puzzle in this game. And so it had a grid layout like a logic puzzle. Whereas the new one, it just has a list of what there is, so it's harder to look. If you know a specific role, it's harder to look down and find that role. Whereas in the original, you can just look down the column of the row. I find that a lot harder to work with, although I played one game so far using the first steps, which is like the beginner version, and it wasn't too bad, but I think in the basic tragedy, which is like the full game version with more things, it might be more difficult finding things. Also, the original player aid had the important information and keywords bolded, which was very helpful, and the new version is a little inconsistent on the keyword usage, like using Mastermind ability as a keyword. The new one also puts abilities all on the same line instead of having a line break for each ability. So in the old one, there was each ability on its own line, which was really helpful for the Mastermind to be able to like see what the different abilities are. So I think, unfortunately, the old player aid is a lot better and easier to use than the new one. I also noticed a couple typos. I'm going to try to take pictures and detail all of the misprints or typo differences that I find in the blog post. So you can check that out if you want more details on those. But moving on to the cards. So there are a lot of cards in this game. First, there's the script cards, the protagonist script cards and the Mastermind script cards, which go over the scripts in the game. So one big change that I really love is that now the Mastermind script cards are bigger. So before, the Mastermind and the protagonist script cards look the same. They're the same color, they're the same size. So it would be easy to get them confused, which can be kind of dangerous because you don't want to look at the Mastermind script card. But now the Mastermind script cards are a bigger card size and a different color. So it's really easy to tell them apart. Both versions pretty much have the same information. The new version has a little bit more. So the Mastermind card also has the special rules in it, which is only in the protagonist cards in the original, but now both versions have it. And also the Mastermind card has like the whole grid of the days instead of just the days that have important stuff, which I guess is a little easier to see like what's happening and when they happen. Also, the subplots are now numbered first and second, which goes into a character abilities later. Sometimes they would reference specific subplots, whereas before it'd be like pick one subplot and you don't know like which one you're picking. Then there's the player action cards, which basically they have the same player actions, different graphic design again, but it's easier to tell apart the player action cards. Before, the backs were all dark colors of different dark colors, but now the backs are brighter colors, so it's easier to tell them apart. And now onto the character cards. They also have different graphic design. The character art is the same, but it's like zoomed in a little. And all the cards have the same information on them, it just looks a little different. There are some differences in the characters though. Well, one big difference is that New Tragedies has 30 characters, whereas the original Tragedy Looper had 18 characters. So there are 12 extra characters in New Tragedies, which are probably come from the expansions. I actually did check. From this expansion, there are 4 new characters, and those appear in New Tragedies. I haven't checked this one yet because it's still in shrink, but I'm going to open it for this video to check the characters. See, I'm opening it. Okay, all right, yeah, so this does have new cards. It has 4 new cards plus two old ones. So when I compared all of the character abilities, I had noticed that the police officer and the informant had different character abilities. But I just opened Cosmic Evil and it came with a police officer and informant that matched the new abilities that are in New Tragedies. They're slightly different abilities, so I thought those had just changed in the new version, but I guess they're the version from Cosmic Evil. Alright, so 4 of the characters, Teacher, Soldier, Transfer Student, and Black Cat, are from Cosmic Evil. The only difference is the Soldier, instead of saying put 2 paranoia on another character in the location, the new one says add 2 unease on any character in this location. So either that was a mistake or that means that you can put it on the Soldier too. And there were also 4 characters from Midnight Circle. There was Illusion, Scientist, Forensic Specialist, and AI. A couple of those were a little different. The AI lets the leader resolve an incident, but the new version doesn't clarify that the leader gets to choose all of the choices triggered by the incident. Also, the Illusion, its type changed from construct to fabrication in this one. I'm not sure what that affects. The AI is still a construct, so that construct type still exists, but I haven't used those before, so I don't really know what construct or fabrication would mean. So then that's 4 cards that I do not have and cannot compare. That's Holy Tree, Prophet, Copycat, and Young Girl. Those are probably from a different expansion that I don't own, or maybe an expansion that wasn't in English. I'm not sure if I own all the expansions. But the new version does have a lot of characters, which is nice. The expansions that I have that come with these characters come with different scripts and like different player aids that have different plots and like different rules. This new Tragedies does not have those, it just has the characters. I'm not sure how well they work with the basic script, but they probably do. So overall, I like the look and feel of the new version. I like the change in the graphic design, the easier to tell apart colors, and I love the board being 1 board versus 5. It makes it so much easier to set up. But I do not like the change in the player aids. I really like the old player aids better, and the new ones just are going to make the gameplay more difficult. I'm also disappointed that they didn't take this chance to improve the rulebook and the learning experience. But even with that, I still think the game is good. It's one of my favorite games and it's the same game basically. It just has different scenarios. So it's kind of like an expansion that you can't play with the original because they changed the names of some random things. If you're just getting into Tragedy Looper for the first time, then either of these would be fine to get, I think. The new one has 13 cases instead of the 10, so that might be a better value. I don't even know if you can find the other one easily. Also, if you're new to Tragedy Looper, the new player aids might not bother you as much because you'll be used to playing that way. And if you already own Tragedy Looper and the expansions, then this new version is kind of like another expansion with 10-ish new scenarios that you haven't played before, probably. At least, they're not in the ones that I have. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of the differences in Tragedy Looper. Once again, you can check out my blog post if you want more detailed pictures and a list of all of the differences I found. And if I missed any major differences, please let me know in the comments. And also let me know what you think about the differences. Maybe you like the changes that I didn't like, or vice versa. But thanks again to WizKids for sending me a review copy of Tragedy Looper New Tragedies. If you found this comparison helpful, please click the like button. And if you want to watch more videos, then you can now. Or you can also subscribe to the channel to get notified of when I have more videos. Thanks for watching Board Game Blitz. Bye!